I would love to do that. So I think I've been getting some messages to hold off, but I think we're gonna get started. I think most people are here. And yeah, I'm hoping that this speaks to you. And it's really, again, all from the heart. And I always like to start off by saying that my class really is me speaking to myself, first and foremost. I don't say anything that I'm not preaching to myself or anything that I don't feel I should reproach myself as well, and first before anyone else. So let's get started. Okay, so I think now with the whole situation of this virus advancing and things getting, more of like, I guess, a steady schedule in the not steady schedule. We have more questions, we're looking for more meaning, we're looking for more answers, the anxiety builds up, it's only normal. And we're really trying to find an answer to what's happening and how we can really digest everything that's happening and how we can go about it. And that's really what comes about in all crises in our life, whether it's small, and now it just happens to be that everyone's kind of living the same crisis in their own way, but everyone's going through it. But in our regular life, that's typically what happens. When we go through a crisis, we're constantly looking for, is it an answer, a comfort, someone that can guide us, but something that could kind of just make us at peace or kind of accept or, rationalize what's happening and break it down into human terms that the anxiety can go down and the pain can go down. So a big question that I think in the virus, a lot of people are looking for is, why is God doing this? And I don't have that answer. But that's a question that comes up a lot in our life. And now it just happens to be that we're all questioning it together. But a lot of times is, why is God doing this? How can I understand God's ways? And a lot of the time we want to understand God. And first thing that we have to take away is this misunderstanding of understanding God. God is the source of all time. He's the source of all space and all beings. So the same way that your own eye can't see its eye, your own ear can't hear its own hearing, and every body part of yours can't see its own function, we can't understand God because God is the source of your knowing. So we can't understand the source of our thoughts. So people tend to think we can't understand God because he's so far away, or we can't understand God because he's so distant and above us. But it's actually quite the opposite. We can't understand God because he's so close. He's not unrelatable. He's not far above us. But he's just the source of everything. So instead of trying to understand him, which won't do us any good, trying to understand God is actually going to make us feel very unrelatable to him. And it's not going to really get us anywhere besides for the conclusion that, wow, he's all powerful and he's amazing. That's really the conclusion it's going to get us to. But it doesn't give us any constructive fact to hold on to in getting to know God. So now that we've ruled out we can't understand God, we can't get to know God. Number one, it's impossible. And number two, if it was possible, it's unrelatable to us. So what constructive purpose does it have? Then how does this fall into place with the whole role of Judaism saying that it's a personal relationship, we get to know God, we get one with God, we emulate God. How does that fit in? Where do we stand with God? We know that Judaism is all about being personal with God. But if we can't get to know him because it's impossible and it's unrelatable, then where do we stand? So spirituality is not about trying to find an image of God. It's not about trying to paint out this picture of God. That's not what it is. Judaism and spirituality is about finding God's image within yourself. It's for searching for God's image in you. When you find God's peace in you, you'll understand the one beyond you. And that's why it says in our Torah that Hashem created us in his image. And it goes on further. The Mishnah tells us that not only he created us in his image, but the chiba yetera shenodat, it was the extra love that God gave us. Out of his extra love is that he told us we were created in his image. He didn't just create us in his image. He told us this secret that we are created in his image. He let us know. For example, if you have a poor man that every day goes about his days in ripped clothing, searching for food, searching for income, searching for any basic necessities. And he knows that there's nothing in his account. He's not going to check his account. Now, if I go and drop $1 million in his account without telling him, he's going to live the rest of his life as a poor man, because to him, he's not going to go bother to check his account. He's a poor man. And so Hashem, in this situation, told us that he dropped this $1 million into our account. He's telling us, I created you in my image. He gave us a hint to the biggest secret of life. We have a piece of God in us. So instead of trying to search and understand God, let's start by understanding the God that's inside us. That's in our control. That's relatable. So when it says that Hashem created us as his image, he's not asking us to paint a vision of God. God is not asking us to find an outside God. Our goals as human beings is not to behold a vision of God, because we can't envision him. Like we established, it's impossible. Our goal as humans are to become the vision of God. It's a very big difference. We actually have to emulate and represent God. So we can't come to know God. We could come to experience God through ourselves. So how do we get the all-knowing of the world, God, to know us? We need God to get to know our godly part, and then we'll understand him. So how do we come to know God? How do we access this, now that we've known this $1 million godly image within ourselves? How do we access that part? So it all starts with how we define what a person is. Today, a person is defined by its accomplishments. That's what we represent ourselves. When we look at a person and we define them, we look at what they accomplished in their life, what they currently accomplish, what they hold under their belt. That's what represents a person. When you think about who's considered fortunate, everyone has their own definition of what's fortunate. One could be that he's intelligent, someone who's well-liked, someone who's healthy, someone who's abundant. There's all different kinds of definition of what makes someone considered to be fortunate. But the common denominator to all these fortunes is one thing, is that they give a well-being to that person. They give like an inner sense of well-being, a peace to that person. They give that person a happiness. Now, whether each person defines their happiness and their well-being as a different thing, at the end of the day, what we define as fortunate and accomplishments is what gives us a well-being. It's not the abundance itself that makes the person happy. It's the feeling of well-being that we experience when we have that abundance. So if we take a look at our lives and we see how we define ourselves, our job, our talents, our hobbies, and these are all beautiful things. These show drive in a person. These show talents in a person. This shows character, charisma. It's amazing. But at the end of the day, is it really yours? Are we really defining ourselves properly? The way we define a person through their accomplishments, we have it all wrong. Your real achievements that you can hold that are truly yours are your choices. The results of your choices are not in your control. Your real accomplishments don't happen. Your real accomplishments aren't what's happening as a stage for the whole world to see and what people are admiring and saying, wow, they've accomplished this and they've accomplished that. That's not your accomplishments. That's the results. The choices and what happens inside you is yours. This quarantine showed us this more than ever. The whole world stopped. Everything that we've defined ourselves as was stripped from us. It's gone. And we were forced to recreate this new schedule and whatever it is that we've all tried to restructure. But really, it's all about redefining who we actually are, because everything that we've invested and defined ourselves till now is gone. And it's almost as if this quarantine stopped the world to ask you, who are you? Now that the world stopped, now that everything that defined you that you thought defined you, that you thought was in your control is gone, who are you? What is left that is yours? What is left that you can say, this is me? So if you look at your accomplishments and your assets in life, everything that we consider an asset is not really ours. Because we can't call it ours forever. Like we see, this virus came and the whole world stopped. Everything that we claim to be ours is gone. And it's on pause. But at the end of the day, it just shows you that it's not truly ours. Life circumstances could change those assets. And if they could be changed, then are they really yours? Are they ever yours? Were they ever yours? So your real assets in life that are forever yours and that can never be taken away, no matter what happens in this world, the whole world could shut down, is your inner self. The inner world that you've created for yourself is yours. And it's the only lasting experience and lasting accomplishment that can never be taken away. And that's why we say the person you are is what goes with you to the next world, because it's you. And now we can better understand when the Talmud says that when a person has a good intention, even if it's not carried out, it's as if he did it. How does this make sense? We would say, well, if it never really carried out, it's beautiful that you had a nice intention. It's beautiful that you wanted to do something. But at the end of the day, our world is used to actions speak louder than words. And the Talmud here is saying the opposite. It's saying, no, just the simple thought is as if you did it. And now we can better understand that. Is because the results are not in our hands. The results is not what matters. The results are not what changed the person. It's the good thought and the intention that came in the person's head that changed him. The reward is for who you became, not what you've accomplished. So God is rewarding us for the person we've become. So the simple thought already changed us as a person. And that's why Judaism is not quantitative, it's qualitative. The thought is what matters because it's a thought that changed you. The results were not in your hand anyways. We have to look at life as we're co-writing life with God. God has the big picture. God has the results. God has the end picture. And he writes those results. We have no control over that. But what we have control over and we have the sole ownership to is writing our own inner script. Writing your own world. That's your choices. So that is why just the simple thought and the intention is what you're rewarded for. Because the rest is not your that's not your playing field. That's God's. Yours is to work with what you have and to make the choices. The final results are him. So the reward is for who you become. Not what changes the world. It's what changes you. The Talmud actually teaches us about the King Shlomo, and his whole kingdom was about building the Beit HaMikdash. That was his kingdom. He worked his whole kingdom to build up the temple, the Beit HaMikdash. And he had a prophecy that showed that his whole kingdom and the temple would be destroyed. Let's put ourselves in his shoes. I know we're in a little bit of a different situation, but let's put ourselves in his shoes. Everything he's invested in his whole life was to build this temple, to build a home for God, for the Jews to come and give sacrifices, to do their prayers. It was a life-changing thing for the Jews. He built a place for God to reside in this world physically. And his whole life and his whole kingdom was devoted to just that. And yet he gets a prophecy telling him that it will all be destroyed. All your hard work will be destroyed. It's very similar to what we're going through, except for ours is on pause. It's not destroyed. So we can understand how much greater that kind of realization he had. Everything he invested in his life was going to be destroyed, and he sees it. Now, let's think of it in our situation. Would you want to continue knowing it's going to all be destroyed? If you knew going through with this project, it's going to be destroyed, It's a little discouraging. It's almost as if, did I make a mistake in my choices? Did I make a mistake in where I want to go with my life? Because I was so sure about this project and I was so confident and I was so driven. And now I'm just being told it's going to be destroyed and it's like confirmed. I would feel sad. I would feel a lot of the emotions that we're going through in this quarantine. It makes us think, well, if it's going to all be destroyed, what should I continue? Or all my work was for nothing, or everything I've invested to was for nothing. So why did Shlomo continue to build? Why did he continue his kingdom with the same drive he had, if not stronger than before? Because Shlomo understood the message. He understood that the result of it being destroyed or built was not in his control. That was not his script to write. He understood that. He knew that he was following the will of God. He had to build this temple. Whether it's to be destroyed at the end or not, he had to build it. And he did. He went ahead and he built it. But he understood the secret of life. He understood that he has a piece of God in him, and that's what he needed to build. The physical building of the temple was only to build what's inside him. So he understood that even if it would be destroyed at the end, the person that he built inside him can never be destroyed. And that's why he continued. He continued his part of the script. He continued to access his godly image in himself. And he continued to build the person inside him. He understood that what we make of ourselves is what we build inside us. And when we live with this understanding, it's actually so comforting. It's so comforting to know that no matter what gets destroyed, no matter what happens around us, no matter what circumstances happen around us, what you built inside you could never be destroyed. The person you became through that destruction can never be taken away. And that's why when we leave this quarantine, we're not looking to go back to a normal life. We're not looking for a restart button. That would be such a shame. We'd be throwing away the purpose of destruction. We'd be throwing away that godly peace inside us that was growing in this. We're looking to go back to a life that's on a different level. We have to stop trying to think of the results. And we have to live in the now and build the inner part of us. Because no matter what results come in life, that inner part of us will never change. That's yours. That's the only asset we have in this life. And that's what we've learned in this quarantine. Nothing else belongs to us. God is screaming to us, nothing belongs to you but the godly peace in you. The whole world is going to shut down. So you can ask yourself one question: who am I without all this? Who am I really? What's inside me that nothing in this world can change? We're so used to this concept of a winner being number one. We're so used to a winner being results. Winner equals results. Winner equals top of the game. That's what we're used to. Sometimes the biggest winner is actually the biggest loser. If all the winner has is his victory and a trophy in his hand, and he walks away with an inflated ego and no lesson learned and no growth, better off being the loser. In contrast to someone who loses and humbly accepts his loss and introspects of how he could change and how he can grow and doesn't sit in self-pity, he has the greatest victory. He walks away with an evolved self. His own person is his trophy. That is so much greater. I'm not saying to not strive for being on top and for being number one. That's beautiful and that's drive. But you should know that if you're on top, without letting it change the inside of you, all you're holding is a trophy. Be your own trophy. That's what we need to get to, is being our own trophy. We need to evolve. We need to access this godly image in us that God is telling us and giving us a secret that we have. That's what it means to be godly. It's not about finding and understanding how big God is. It's about understanding your own godliness that He gave you. That's the only way you're going to come to an ounce of understanding what the God above us is to understand the God within us. Tap into the God within you. That's the only asset we have. And that's how we have to restructure what an accomplishment really is. What defines a person? When we restructure that mindset, we can clearly understand what a person is, and we can access that godly part of us. Rabbi Weinberg, Noah Weinberg used to say, "You don't know what you're living for unless you know what you're ready to die for." He goes further and he says, "Articulate the essential things that make life constantly purposeful. Make it clear to you. Go into detail. Ask yourself, why? Why am I ready to die for this? And be clear about it. If you're ready to die for it, then live for it. What else could be more meaningful?" Let's internalize that. We're so busy with finding out how to get through this. Now is a time where the world stopped. Let's pause and say, what am I ready to die for? Unfortunately, we're seeing so many people getting sick, and the concept of death feels closer to us. And it's only when that concept of death comes closer that we really go in and delve in and question, what are we living for? But let's flip it. What are we ready to die for? And live for that. There's nothing that could be more meaningful than living for what you would die for. You're guaranteed a life of meaning. I personally, in every situation, I ask myself, who do I want to be? Not what do the circumstances make me be? Yes, we're going through a hard time. Yes, this virus has brought out so many challenges in us and so many emotions and so many things we never thought even a couple of months ago we would experience. But ask yourself, who do you want to be? Who is that godly image in you? What's my asset? Not what circumstances make me be. Don't let the circumstances define you. You define the circumstances. Take it into our hands. We can't let our temporary emotions overpower our goals. We need to zoom out. We need to understand that the unknown is inevitable. We can't avoid it. So all we can take with us is the person we are. There's actually a story that's told that really gives such a good light to this image of God that we have within us. And not only the image of God that we have within us, but actually a tiny bit of an understanding of the God we have above us. And when I say above, it's just figuratively. He's everywhere and he's within us and he's always present. There's a story of a man who lived in Paris, a Jew with his son, and they lived in a penthouse in Paris. And each floor had two penthouses. So their neighbor that they were very close with, and they always crossed paths through the same floor, was actually the stepfather of the King of Morocco. So the King of Morocco's real father passed away, and this guy in Paris was married to the queen, the widow, and now the son took over in Morocco. So when this Jewish neighbor finds this out, he was so shocked, and he was like, "This is like crazy. I didn't know that you had royalty in your family and that you were related. Does he ever come visit?" And the neighbor said, "Yeah, of course. He always comes, and we're very close. We hold a very good relationship. His mother lives here." So the Jewish neighbor asked, "The next time your stepson comes to visit, do you mind if I have the honor to meet him? It would really, really mean so much to me." And the neighbors, they both had great relationships. They were very formal. And he said, "For sure, like it's a pleasure. I mean, once he's here, if it's not a bother to him, I'll bring it up and I'll let you know." So the neighbor came next couple weeks and said, "My stepson is actually here. He came for a visit. I would love for you guys to come meet." So the Jewish father and his son went to go meet the king of Morocco. And the king was super friendly. He was talking with the son, and they got along. It was a couple of days of just bonding and questions and getting to know each other. And he had asked the boy how old he was, and the boy had told him that he was 13. And the king told him, "Isn't that a special age for Jewish boys?" And the boy smiled and was so shocked that he was taking interest into him and that he was so involved and really making conversation friendly. And he said, yeah, I'm turning bar mitzvah very soon. And I read from the Torah and I go to the synagogue and we have a special party and I get gifts. And the king kept speaking and they were very friendly, and their visit ended and the father and the son went home and they were in so much shock. And the last few days felt like a total dream. Like they were sitting with the king of Morocco and having just casual conversation. And the son at such a young age was just so taken aback that he was before such a beautiful, like, royalty. It was very, very empowering for him. The next day they get a knock at their door and the king's attendant came to this Jewish father and his son, and they informed him that the king requests to see them immediately. So they had a moment of panic, like, what could the king want? Did we do something wrong? Did we say something? And of course, without a doubt, they just picked up their stuff and went straight to the king, and both the father and the son. And the king was waiting there for them. And when they walked in, the king pulled out an envelope from his pocket and he handed it to the young boy. And he said, this is the gift I give you for your bar mitzvah. Please open it. Already just receiving an envelope from the king of Morocco was like mind blowing. He was like in a dream. He couldn't even believe receiving a gift. He opened it, not even caring what's in it. It was just like, wow. And to his shock, there was a check of $50,000. The boy almost fainted. He looked at the king and he said, even $5,000 is outrageous. This is crazy. I can't accept this. This is like, a bar mitzvah gift is typically just not this price, not anywhere close. And he was trying to explain to the king what kind of gift we give at the age of bar mitzvah. And the king had one simple answer. Well said and straight to the point. And this is the message we need to take. The king answered the boy, when a king gives a gift, he does not give a gift suitable for the recipient. He gives a gift suitable for a king. Wow. This is the key to everything. This could, first of all, give us light to the God that we speak to. When he gives us our mitzvot of Shabbat, of kosher, of all the mitzvot, we can go through all of them. We don't realize it is not a gift measured by our deserving. It's a gift measured to his greatness. We are given a blueprint of the world. The whole Torah is given to us, measured to Hashem's greatness, not ours. It is a gift from the king. It is a gift measured to his greatness. Do we know what we have in our hands? It's beautiful. And just to give it a little bit more meaning, Rabbi Manis Friedman actually goes into depth of the mitzvah, and it's really beautiful. And he says, Hashem didn't just give us mitzvah that convey his will and that we're commanded to do to follow Hashem. He gave us an extra kindness beyond that. He could have just told us, this is the process, do this, and this is fulfilling my will, and it would have we would have accomplished the same goal. But God had an extra kindness. He gave us a gift to his grandeur. And he told us, not only are these mitzvot going to be accomplishing my will, but these mitzvot are going to give you a refined being. They're going to refine your inner self. We're going back to that concept. They're going to give you an asset. Our mitzvot are not here just for God. God's grandeur was too big to give us something just for him. He gave us his mitzvot to show us that it can give us an asset inside us. That was his kindness. God gave us so much more than just a commandment. He gave us mitzvot for our own benefit. It's not only to connect to him, it's not only to follow his commands, but it's to refine our own self and create an asset within ourselves, to create that godly peace within us, that asset that nothing can take away. That's the power of our mitzvot. He granted them in his grandeur, not what we're deserving of. When we give charity, we're not just fulfilling a command to give charity. We actually develop within ourselves a sensitivity to another. We learn the proper perspective of what materialism really means. We learn what it means that God entrusted us with something more to give to others. When we keep Shabbat, It's not just to keep the command of Hashem. We actually build structure. We ingrain into our lives so much bigger objectives. This applies to all the mitzvot. If you look at Shechita, it's to show compassion to all the animals and all the creations of God. That we have a set of laws to sensitize us, to have a painless death for the animals. Each and every mitzvah plays this role. It's an expression of God's grandeur. His kindness was not to just give us commandments that fulfill his will. That would have been enough. That's probably maybe what we're deserving of. But a king does not give a gift suitable to the recipient. He gives a gift suitable for a king. And he gave us the mitzvot to connect to ourselves, not just to connect to him. To build an asset within ourselves. And if we want to take this further, this beautiful kindness and grandeur of Hashem, we can actually apply it to ourselves. We can do the same thing. We can perform our mitzvot above our human nature and connect to this godliness that Hashem has. And really, it's not connecting again to something above us. It's connecting to that asset within us, that image of God within us. So how do we emulate this amazing grandeur that Hashem gave us, this compassion that he gave us, to give above what the recipient deserves, to give based on our value? Tomer Dovara goes into a lot of depth of what this means. When we think of giving, a lot of the times we think of giving to a recipient based on what they deserve. It's only natural, someone that you have more love to, someone that you're closer to, someone that you know appreciates you, you're going to want to give to that person. Whereas someone who may be disrespectful to you, doesn't appreciate you, it's a little harder to give in those circumstances. You're not naturally compelled to run first to that person and give. We're naturally compelled to give where we feel it's going to be deserved. But now, with this new concept that we give suitable to ourselves, we don't give suitable to the recipient. We have to take out that logic that's telling me to direct your giving to a deserving place. And we have to ask ourselves, who am I? Do I want to represent kindness and compassion? If the answer is yes, it doesn't matter who's on the other side. It doesn't matter. We're giving because of the inner part that's in us. We're building the inner part of us. We're not giving because someone deserves. We're not giving because we're going to feel appreciated. We're giving in a manner that befits our own value, that befits that godly peace in us. That is so much stronger. So now that we understand that we have to give befitting our own value, a king gives based on the value of a king. How do we do this? It's great to hear the theory, but how do we really accomplish giving based on our own value? How do we determine who we are? Who's that godly peace in us? What's that asset? How do we build it? There's two things we have to define. In life, there's intentions and there's instincts. We're going to define both of them. There's a big difference between the two. Instincts are your immediate reaction to situations. It's more of our animalistic side. It's really our yetzer hara. Intentions is your goals in life, where you want to go, what you want to accomplish, who you want to become. Your intentions is really coming from that inner part inside you, your soul. And in the spiritual realm, that represents your yetzer hara tov. So we have instincts, which is almost like our knee-jerk reaction to life. And we have intentions, our goals. And life is a constant battle between the two. I'm going to give you a simple example. Someone who wants to become a doctor. And they want to go ahead and they know it's going to take years of study, long nights, early mornings, dedication, and commitment. But they want to get there. Their intention, meaning their goal, is to become a doctor. Their instincts is when that alarm rings at 6 a.m., do they press snooze? When they have that stressful day and the stress is going above what they think they could handle, do they push through? Because they have their intentions in mind. That's what life is about. We want to bring our intentions and our goals to life. We want to make them a reality. But if we want to make them a reality, then we have to be honest with ourselves. What are our instincts happening right now? What's the instincts of our being? And everyone has how they're made up, their human nature of how we're made. Those are your instincts. But we can't stay stuck in our instincts. We can't stay stuck living a life of instincts. If we want to get to an intentional life where we choose our life, where we define the circumstances, we need to break down our instincts. You need to ask yourself, how instinctive am I? How much of my life am I living based on just reacting? How much of my life is a reaction to life versus choosing and acting upon it? And this is a very big part that, again, Rabbi Manis Friedman brings up, of thinking above our feelings. There's two modes of life. We can either step up and become who we want to be, or we could succumb to the knee-jerk reactions and stay in an instinctive life. So we need to go above our human nature. We can't comply to human nature because then life is all about just reacting. Life is all about kind of just taking what life throws at you. It's like almost like someone just throwing a bunch of things at you and you just have to react. And it's living with your emotions. We can't live with our emotions. And Rabbi Manis Friedman explains to us, and it was really beautiful how he put it. If you look at a young child who's still developing his intelligence and still developing his maturity, he has no problem identifying emotions. He knows when to cry, he knows when to scream, he knows when to be angry. He has all the emotions. So emotions is natural. The whole point of developing maturity and intelligence with age is that we can get beyond what we feel. You don't need to be intelligent to feel something. That's there. Your emotions are there. So the whole function of intelligence is to enable us to go past our feelings, to think above how we feel, to think above our instincts. We have to stop worshiping our sensations and our impulses. This is actually what Rabbi Manis Friedman calls addicted thinking. Addicted thinking is when our mind is addicted to the feelings. Our mind is not free to think. It's addicted to an emotion. So really, it's our feelings that are going to dictate our life. And it shouldn't be that way. We need to override our human instincts and override our emotions. And emotions are beautiful, but they need to be channeled. For example, when you say to a child, I know you're not in the mood to go to this activity, but we have to go to this activity. I know you don't want to, but it has to be. What you're actually telling your child, besides disciplining him and showing him self-control, you're actually teaching the child to build this separation between his emotions and his thinking. You're telling him, yes, I know your feelings and I acknowledge them and I validate them, that you're not in the mood. That's your emotion. But what's the right thing right now? What do we have to do? And you're teaching him to rise above his emotions and to live an intentional life. Pirkei Avot says, who is strong? One who controls his inclinations. It doesn't say one who controls its evil inclinations. Because that we know is basic. We know that we're fighting with our Yetzer Hara. The Pirkei Avot says inclinations. That's it. Doesn't say evil. In other words, it's referring to our natural inclinations. It's not something bad. It's not evil. But it is something that we need to control. It is something that needs to be governed by our intelligence and not worshipped by our emotions. We're given one chance at life and one chance at godliness. We're not here for a practical life. We're here for a meaningful life. And our challenges are the tools to find that inner peace within us that's godly. When we tap into our lives and we choose the life we want to live, we create the reality. We fuel our vision, not our impulse. That's when you're building an asset for yourself. That's when you're building that inside piece of you that no outside circumstance can take away. That's when you actually are in touch with your godly part. When you live an intentional life, when you choose your life, we have to remember to fuel your vision, not your impulse. Look for godliness, and it's nowhere but inside you. And that's what this quarantine is showing us. The whole world is shutting down. Everything can be destroyed. But the person you become and the person you are inside you and the changes that your choices make inside you, nothing could take that away. And that's the asset and the only asset that is yours forever. And we have to choose that life. We have to delve into that godly peace. So again, we have to stop trying to understand God. It's impossible. And it's irrelevant. It's irrelatable to us. And it won't give us anything constructive. When we understand the godly peace that he gave us, that $1 million he gave us in our account, when we look into it and take that gift in, you'll understand him. When we choose the life we live, we don't react to life, we choose it. We define the circumstances. We imprint our inner peace on the circumstances. That's when you've won. That's when you've become your own trophy. And that's what we have to do. Build that inner peace. Choose your life. And access that godly part. And that's an asset that no quarantine and no virus can take away. I hope that this spoke with you. I hope it was clear. And I think it's something that is a lot of introspection. It's not a topic that it's very different from my last class. It's really not something that we just walk away with inspiration. It's actually something that we sit and meditate about and think about. How much of our life are we living instinctively? And how much are we living intentionally? It's a lot of thinking. But God in his kindness shut the world down so that you could think of it. I'm going to take questions now. I see the chats are going up, so I'm just going to take a look here. Okay, so I have some questions here. I'm just reading them. Okay. Okay, this is a great question. How do you get past the situation? How do we keep doing the right thing when the results aren't quote unquote good? How do we keep pushing ourselves to do what's right when a negative result keeps coming out? So it's a great question and easier said than done. First thing I would say is we have to remind ourselves that we're not the writer of the results. And again, that's where this whole quarantine is showing us. We're only our asset. We're only what we've built inside us. We have to build our inner world. And Rabbi Wallerstein always says, you will never be punished for doing what's right. God is here. And it's easier said than done for sure. And we have to do our hishtadlut. We have to do our part. But you'll never be punished for doing what's right. God sees it. But what's important to know is we're not the script. We don't write the script of results. We don't write that part. Our choices is all we have. What we do with what we can't control is all the only control we have. And when we surrender and realize that we're really co-writers with God in this story, and we let him do his part, and we surrender to him in that part, we're actually giving him access to give us. But when we're trying to control the results, you're not letting him write that script. You're not letting him access that part. You're not letting him be that part. And it's easier said than done. I'm speaking to myself loud and clear. And the more that the results are not good, we have to stop looking at results. We have to look at who we became along the way. We have to transform every experience to a point that we would redo it if we had to, because we've become such a different person that without that crazy traumatic experience, we wouldn't be the person we are. And that's when you've healed. That's when you're able to get to the next step. I hope I answered that clearly. I have another question here. If I can give real life examples of how to live an intentional life and not let our feelings dictate over our life. Okay, this is a very good question. It's very hard. It's a work. It's a work. And actually, there's a great book. I just wanted to show you guys that this book here is Beyond the Letter of the Law. It actually goes in and says, it's really interesting, takes all things from Pirkei Avot, and it explains to us that if we live according to the law and halacha, we're really limiting ourselves. It's beautiful and it's great, and you're not required to go more. But if we really tap in to beyond the letter of the law and refine ourselves, we become beings that can access more than just human nature. And it's a lifetime of work. It's not something that we just acquire. It's not something that we just snap our finger to get rid of human nature. So definitely, like a real life example of how to live intentionally. Personally, me, after I did learn this concept, I wrote down things from the tiniest goals to my biggest goals. And I took away all fear. And actually, maybe now is the best time because the world is on pause. Took away all that. And I said, in an ideal, perfect world where I could build my own life, what's my goals? What do I want as a career? What do I want as a house? What do I want? Everything. From and to the smallest things. And when you write those out, you say, okay, those are my intentions. Now let's break it down. Those aren't things you just jump to get. You don't just jump into your intentions. What are the small instincts in my life that I need to change that bring me closer to those intentions? That's how you have to break it down. We can't just look at, it's good to have your intentions as the bigger picture, but then you need to have bars where you cross off, where you can climb, that are realistic, that you can get to. But taking control of our emotions is not an easy thing. It's really not. It's something that's hard. It's not something that we just acquire. But we have to look into our emotions. First of all, just being aware of it is such a big start. We already start off with knowing that, hey, my emotions are leading my life. In this area, I'm living as a reaction. I'm not choosing it. And that already can make you start breaking down. Why am I not choosing it? What emotion am I holding on to in this situation? I'm actually going to post a link of Rabbi Manis Friedman's class on that, on this topic. I'm just going to put it in here for everyone. And I'm going to just keep reading. So I'm getting a lot of very similar questions in terms of our emotions getting carried away, and everyone's sending it privately. So don't worry, I am not I'm not revealing anyone's messages, but it is something hard. But like I said, I think when we start by looking at what emotions we're holding on to and where they stem from, to ready a start, we have to look at, why am I holding on to this emotion? When, for example, a stressful deadline at work comes and I notice that I start to panic and I block down. Why do I resort to blocking down? Already just the fact that I'm becoming aware that in this type of situation, I have the knee-jerk reaction to break down, you already have a step ahead that you're aware of it. So the awareness is the starting point. And then you're not going to win each time. It's not going to be 10 on 10 that you win. But it's going to start on 1 on 10 that you said, no, today I'm choosing not to break down. I want an intentional life. And then there's going to be 9 on 10 where you lived it instinctively. And then it's going to be 2 on 10 and 3 on 10. And it's going to grow. But awareness is the starting block. And writing it down and actually breaking down who you are. We need to be honest with ourselves. It's great that we're in a time of chizuk. It's great that there's all these rabbis giving chizuk, and it's what's keeping me going. But we need to take this chizuk that they're giving us, and we need to make it real. We need to sit down and write it down. We need to break down who we are. And we're going to come to a lot of realizations. When you sit and break it down, you're going to come to a lot of realizations. And you may realize that a lot of things are scary to come to terms with. But you don't need to be scared. You need to know that this is you. This is the raw you. You need to be in touch with the raw self. And there's nothing that is more redeeming than knowing that your mind is not controlled by anything. I hope that answers. I know a lot of you are messaging me privately. So if you do want to reach out about specific examples, it's just hard to, I'm seeing the questions you guys are asking me. It's hard to answer them without revealing the things that are private. So I really, really encourage you to actually message me on my Instagram page. And if you have my number, WhatsApp me. And I would love to take actually personal examples and really answer if I can. But I hope I answered all the questions. I hope I was able to give you guys a tool as a starting tool for the work that's to come, because it's not something easy. But feel free to really message me for any questions on this topic, or any feedback is great. I really always appreciate every message. And I thank you all for coming. And thank you again to Kelly for everything, as always.
Thanks,
Thank you so much, Bianca.
Bianca.
It's really my pleasure.
Thank you.
Really my pleasure. I'm